welcome this morning. We've got another episode of Stockport Grammar School Talks Sport, and today we've got an exciting guest, somebody who I learned a lot of my university days, but we've got hockey mad, come teacher, come teaching the teachers, and a proud mum supporting two girls through their professional journey. So welcome, Barbra Walsh. Thanks for your time. We really appreciate it. What we'll start off with today is that if you could just talk a little bit about yourself, about your journey from where you are today.
Yeah, okay. So gosh, when you sent me the question and I looked at it and I thought, wow, how do I answer this anyway? So I suppose, I've always wanted to be a teacher. So that was, very early in my school life. I think around that 11, I decided I wanted to teach. Absolutely have loved my teaching career. So I stayed in teaching virtually the whole of my career, although I moved from schools into university, and actually then stopped teaching because I became a manager and became a director. So, but obviously still my motivation always is to try and pass on some of my knowledge, but my enthusiasm, my enjoyment of sport, if you like, because I've always been involved in sport all my life as well. So teaching, I've been a coach, so coached, I support, sort of semi-elite, but I coached North under-16s, I coached Greater Manchester Schoolgirls, which a lot of the Stockport Grammar School girls have been through that system. I taught at Marple Hall. I was head of PE at Marple Hall in Stockport for something like 12 years, I think that was. And then obviously when I went to university, I was involved in teaching the teachers, as you just said. But I think the main thing for me is throughout my whole teaching career is always looking for people to to better themselves, to have that positive attitude. I've always encouraged as a leader, because I've been a leader, was the head of department in schools, head of year in schools, a director in higher education, which probably means nothing to you, but it's, it's sort of a very high level in universities. But it's always to have that open communication channel, to, see the best in people, to encourage them to be their best and to get them to move on in their careers. And I think when I look back, a lot of my past students who I've taught, still in touch with me, they've carried on being involved with sport because of the encouragement and the enthusiasm that I sort of passed on to them. So for me, a very varied career, but I suppose the biggest bit for me is a mum of two elite performers, if you like. So obviously, Kate Richardson-Walsh, 375 caps, captain for 13 years, gold medal winner, bronze medal, Olympic winner, obviously, European champion. So, to support Kate through her elite years, and also my youngest daughter, because people forget, Rachel as well, got 55 senior caps. And they both went through the systems of playing England under-16s, England under-18s, England under-21s, and then senior level. So it was quite difficult, to support them, to encourage them, because not everything's rosy, and I think he sees us winning the gold medal in Rio, which was amazing, to win the bronze medal in London, which they were disappointed with because they wanted to win the gold on home soil. But that career of captaining the team for 13 years had a lot of downsides. And I think the most important thing to take from that is you have to stay focused.
No,
so that, basically in a nutshell, that's my career, and that's where I am today.
It's awesome, Jenny. And what resonates me with there is when you talked about the teaching, getting the best out of people. I think a true sign of success is those people are still getting in touch with you and saying thank you to you. So he's obviously done a massive impact on different people's lives there. So that's awesome. Good. And just leading into a little bit about high performance, because for me, you've been a high performance working within teachers, developing teachers, and then you touched on obviously with Rachel and Kate. What is high performance to you?
For me personally, and obviously looking back at my two daughters as well, it's that work ethic of actually work hard and be committed. Kate rigidly stuck to a training regime, and even if it was Christmas Day, they would stick to that. I'll give you some scenarios around that. And the other thing for me is, this is going to resonate throughout my whole talk really, is about this thing of a positive attitude, because there's always going to be setbacks. And I think it just depends on how you deal with those. So a scenario I'll give you on this one is when Kate was 15, At 14, she was picked for England under 16s. And at 15, she was dropped by England under 16s. And that was massive. Now, I know a lot of girls that were playing with her at the same time who didn't make that next step, stop playing.
Yeah.
And actually, some of them were actually really talented people, but they stopped playing because of that very first setback. And I remember when Kate got the rejection letter through the post, and we knew it was a rejection because it was a very thin letter that said basically, thanks for coming. And I remember sitting on the bed with her and obviously cried and, you know, and comforted her. And then she stopped and she looked at me and she said, do you know what, Mum? One day I'm going to play in an Olympic Games. She literally just remember being rejected at England under 16 level. And when she was 20, she played in Sydney. And I will always remember that. And I just think here was somebody who'd found something she loved doing. She wanted to succeed. And my goodness, she was focused at that. So keeping that positivity at that time, it was the worst thing ever that could have happened.
Yeah.
But she was determined. She wanted to make that a success. So it was that dream big.
Yeah.
Have that self-belief, you know, motivation. And the other thing is have the courage to be different, because, you know, a lot of her friends, by the time they got to 15 or 16, didn't want to be involved with sport anymore. And Kate knew that that's what she wanted to do. So she had the courage to carry out her convictions, if you like, and do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was important. The other thing around, I've just jotted a couple of things here. Well, another couple of scenarios I can give you is, in the run up to 2012, so we're talking about high performance, they had a saying that was gold medal belief, so gold medal thinking, if you like. Yeah. And what that meant was the whole team had to trust each other, and they had to have this team purpose. And the thing around trusting each other is this gold medal thinking was, if you were going out, so you had some rest time, you didn't have too many drinks, you made sure you kept your nutritional program, but they had to trust. And believe it or not, Kate said it took them 8 months to come to that belief that they wanted to do that. And it was, you know, they had to have that freedom to be able to express how they felt. If somebody wasn't playing particularly well, they supported them.
Yeah.
So that gold medal thinking was their absolute focus and belief. And I suppose that's another thing around high performance is it's having that focus. And the other one was in the lead up to Rio, they had something different called, it was called Thinking Thursdays. So in their training sessions, obviously they were part of this centralised programme. On a Thursday, the coach would say, right, I'm going to put you in different teams. So obviously the defenders weren't always working with the defence. So he mixed all the teams up, and on a Thursday he would give them different scenarios and sort of say, right, you're 3-0 down, you're playing with this team of a group of people you don't really sort of in the team's situation, you know, necessarily gel with. And then they were given different scenarios and they had to see through those. So it was basically, the coach knew he was putting them into scenarios that they would find difficult, but they had to think through it themselves. They had to sort it out themselves. And that Thinking Thursdays made them become an absolute focused team going into Rio. You know, and it was that culture that they built up around that. So a couple of scenarios around there around high performance, but of course the other side of it all is that positivity, isn't it? Going in, knowing that that's a positive, absolutely, you know, that's what's going to happen. So that team had won the European Championships in 2015. They were European champions going into Rio, which was great. Yeah. In 2014, they were 11th out of 12 in the World Cup. Yeah. So you've come from that something, and they've rebounded. They took stock. They looked at themselves, came back, won the European Championships, won the gold medal in Rio. So that thing of having that positive mindset is absolutely, you know, for me, one of the best things about high performance. It is the mindset. Yeah.
No, definitely. It's also as well there. And when you do fail, and it sounds cliche, but failing is good. You learn from your mistakes, and it gives you that drive. And when you talked about your daughter when she was not made the squad, and actually she came back, I want to play in that Sydney Olympics, and she's actually turned that negative into a positive and used that as a drive. So I think that's really, really important to anybody who possibly takes steps in their career, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the thing to understand as well, it's not a click of the finger that's going to happen. You know, that took a lot of time talking it through, thinking it through. Is this what you want? You know, all those sort of things. But it's that support and encouragement that's key as well, I think.
Yeah, and in terms of sort of parents, obviously you've supported your two girls through their journey. Have you got any advice to parents in that process, and what sort of things they could do to help and encourage and develop those?
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's obviously being in sport myself, and I was a hockey coach, so obviously I had to keep a little of a backward step. So in some respects, when the girls were going through the ranks, it was hard for them because I think they had to prove themselves more than others. I think because mum was a coach too. But I think for them, it's as a parent is just to be there. You know, for them to know you're there, but you don't have to be vociferous in that. It's just always encouraging, supporting, you know, to be there when things aren't going so well. And it's difficult. You know, Rachel had 55 senior caps. She was in the squad to go to Melbourne Commonwealth Games and actually got selected as the non-travelling reserve. I mean, there's nothing worse than being picked as a non-travelling reserve. You know, and supporting her and her making those decisions of what she wanted to do. So that's really hard. But you know, I think back to Kate when she made her England debut in 1999, which was in Cologne, and she was 19. And in the semi-final game against the Germans, she didn't play. So at that time, they didn't have the roll-on, roll-off substitutions. She was obviously on the bench, but didn't come on the pitch, and she was absolutely gutted. And at the end of the game, they'd done the warm down, and she came over. We were stood on the sideline, and she just put her head on her shoulder and she cried. But it was for me letting that emotion come out, and then I said to her, "You need to go back in that changing room, Kate, with your head held high. You've been part of a squad that's done really, really well. See what happens in your final game." And of course, in the final game, she played for virtually all of it. Yeah. So it is that thing of, okay, you know, that I'm really upset about that. However, I've got to go and believe in myself, and that's what she did.
Of all your accomplishments, it could be professional, personally, what are you most proud of and why?
I find this really difficult to answer, really. I think, obviously, very proud of my daughters, but personally, I think getting my PhD is something I never, ever believed I would do. Yeah. I think it was something that I felt academics did, and it was something that was completely out of my grasp. And what I suddenly realised going into higher education was reading a lot of the theory books, which is, you know, all the theoretical underpinning. I was doing that as a teacher. So when academics in university were saying, "Oh, no, we've got all these different pedagogic approaches and we do this, we do that," and I was thinking, do you know what? I did that anyway. So it was, for me, it was almost, I didn't believe in myself of what I actually did, even though had lots of successes. I didn't believe myself that I knew all that stuff. Yeah. But basically I did. What I couldn't say is, I can reference Bailey, or can reference, you know, whoever, Capel. Yeah. So for me, so my best thing ever, and it was later in my life, obviously, I got my PhD and I was delighted. And it's interesting how many doors it can open for you in higher education once you've got a PhD, believe it or not. So so I'm most proud of that.
What are your 3 non-negotiable behaviours you'd expect in yourself, or anybody else you come into contact with?
For me, the very first thing is commitment. Yeah. I think you know straight away, you can sense it in how people react to things, that they're going to be committed. And for me, it's a personal value for me, but it's something that I look for in other people. Respect. Yeah. I have a huge thing around respect, and I don't know if you remember when you were at John Moores, but it was that thing, as I always said, you have to earn respect. Yeah. It just doesn't happen. And to gain respect, you have to, as a leader yourself, do things and show people that actually you're doing what you're asking them to do, and you earn that respect. Yeah. So that's an absolute key one for me. Yeah. And I was split between 2 here. So my third one would be courage. Yeah. So have the courage to follow your own goals, to follow your beliefs. And I think I had the courage. I never thought I would go and teach in higher education and have the courage to do that. And then to have the courage to later in life go, do you know what, I'm going to do that PhD because I'm going to prove to myself I can do it. So that courage, I think, is important. And the other one I just couldn't grapple with was, I think we just mentioned it before, is gratitude.
Yeah.
To always say thank you, to say thank you to your parents for all that support, for always being there, for all that help, for the travelling around, getting up and all those things. But to thank your teachers, to thank your coaches. I always have a big thing about always say thank you, no matter who it is, because they at some step, even if it's a little step, they've helped you. And I think it's really important to say thank you to them.
If you could give any Stockport Grammar School pupil any advice, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
I would say I got very much into, and you can Google this person, but Carol Dweck has something around a positive mindset.
Yeah. And
I think for me, this is key for any student that I've ever taught and been involved with and coached as well. If as a student you believe that an intelligence can grow, you will go, and if you get a setback, you will go and say, do you know what have I learned from that setback? What can I do to improve it? And obviously moving on from that, you will put more effort into it.
Yeah.
And because of that more effort, you're going to get, a better outcome. And so the whole positivity thing goes on. But it is that thing. But if you have a fixed mindset, so if at that first hurdle and you fail and you say, I can't do this, or I've seen this a lot with students in higher education, the first thing they'll say is, well, I can't do it, I failed, I'm stupid. That's their first comment. And obviously the behaviour from that is, I'm going to give up. And then, I just can't do it. And then we get that fixed mindset of, I can't improve. Yeah. So I think Carol Dweck's done a lot of research on this. And I'm an absolute believer in that, that positive mindset is really important, regardless. So we're talking about high performance. It's in high performance. If you're looking at anything to do, a lot of sporting scenarios are the same in business. You have to have that positive mindset and have to have that belief. So it's, we've just said before, learning from those setbacks. So a key thing for me is, as I say, Google Carol Dweck, because she's some really interesting stuff in there. But I think the other thing for me is to embrace new opportunities. You might find something, maybe you sort of got your mindset on doing one particular thing, and then something else comes along and, maybe I quite like that. But, have a go. Embrace those new opportunities. Don't just turn them down, and set yourself some goals. But work hard. If you're going to set yourself some goals, people say dream. Dreams only exist if you write them down, then you're setting them as goals, and then think, actually, how am I going to achieve them? And then think about having that positive mindset of, well, if I don't always succeed, what can I do differently? How can I change it to make it better? Yeah. And I think for me, that's probably one thing that my whole career has been based on that. That's how I've moved on and on and on, if you like. And I know certainly both my daughters, the same thing. Yeah. Lots of setbacks, but yeah. And, always show gratitude. That's a massive thing for me.
And that's always sat for me, actually, from John Moores. I remember on the graduation, the slogan was dream, believe, achieve, or dream, plan, achieve.
Plan, achieve.
Yeah, and that sat with me all my life, and that's what I do, is dream big, plan how you're going to do it, and then go out and do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not always going to be a linear path. No. You are going to have setbacks, but it's for me how you deal with those. And that's why the gratitude thing comes in, because that's when you need the support structures around you, and people will support you if you respect them and say thank you.